Hi, gang. Hello, 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 everybody. The poll question today on this Wednesday at Smerconish.com is the following. Should parents have the right to exempt their children from school materials that include LGBTQ plus themes? I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening because today we will have story time in just a moment. First, special thanks to my friends at Parks Casino. This is a really big announcement. I had to read this twice. I was like, really? This is going to happen? Guess who's coming to Parks Casino? Bill Murray. Yes, that Bill Murray. So he's taking a break from the silver screen, headed to an entirely different stage as he joins forces with the Blood Brothers, Mike Zito and Albert Castiglia, for a thrilling night of blues rock and roll. Who knew? Bill Murray, the award-winning actor who has starred in, well, come on, Groundhog Day, right? Loves so many of his Caddyshack. What am I thinking of? Caddyshack, Ghostbusters, Little Shop of Horrors. We could go on and on and on. So Blood Brothers is a culmination of over a 45-year experience from the duo of Mike Zito and Albert Castiglia. Together, they've won awards for blues rock, including Album of the Year for their debut record. And for one night only, Saturday, November 15, Bill Murray will join them at Parks Casino. Parks Casino, indeed, this is how you win. Tickets are on sale for that show and other shows. Great lineup coming. ParksCasino.com to buy tickets for all of your great entertainment. All you need to do is go to ParksCasino.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, yesterday poll results at Smerconish.com. Thank you for the 33,868. With birth rates declining in many developed nations, should governments adopt policies that actively encourage citizens to have more children? 75.85% said no. I think that vote margin not warranted by the facts. I think it's at least a much closer call than those numbers would indicate. And I also think that the fact that you've got, the Trump administration, J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, all identified with being pro-natalist, that it probably skewed a lot of people. Like, if they're for it, I have to be against it. And the impetus for me to have that conversation yesterday was the interview that I had done the day before with Dana Mattioli from the Wall Street Journal, who wrote under the headline, "The Tactics Elon Musk Uses to Manage His Legion of Babies and Their Mothers." Really, really interesting reporting. She was a great guest. I just think it's a legitimate issue. I mean, America's fertility rate is at an historic low right now, 1,616 births per 1,000, or think of it as 1.6 per 100. Far beneath the rate needed to maintain the population size. And when you don't sustain the population that you have, then there are a lot of ramifications that flow from it. It's not just the United States. I went into all the data yesterday. We're at 1.61 or 62, well below our replacement level of 2.1. The European Union, they're at 1.38. In the third world, the numbers are much higher. If you take a look at Angola, it's 5.76, Niger, 6.73, Sub-Saharan Africa, generally 4.3 to 4.6. But it's not just a third world issue. South Korea has the world's lowest fertility rate at 0.72. Japan is at a record low of 1.20, and on and on and on. Why does it make a difference? It makes a difference because there are economic, social, and geopolitical consequences when you dip below your replacement rate. But okay, that was not a compelling argument because, as I say, 33,868 voted, and it was 75.85% who said no, they don't want government involved in this area. Okay, today, Wednesday, poll question at Smerconish.com. And I went on a field trip doing a little investigation for all of you that I'm eager to tell you about. Should parents have the right to exempt their children from school materials that include LGBTQ plus themes? You know that this relates, to an argument that took place yesterday in the Supreme Court of the United States. It involves a Maryland school district where at least 5 books have become a focus of controversy. Pride Puppy, Love Violet, Uncle Bobby's Wedding, by the way, the author of that book on today's radio show, Born Ready, and My Rainbow. So post radio show yesterday, I took this list to a local independent bookstore. It was kind of funny because TC gave it to me and I just like handed this list and I said, do you have any of these books? So a very nice woman helped me and she looked them up one by one in the computer. And she's like, oh, that's on back order. We don't have that. We're waiting for this. And then without me saying anything else, she said to me, would you like to see some of the LGBTQ plus books? This is a kids bookstore that we do have in stock. And I said, yes, as a matter of fact, I would be thrilled if you would. So she took me over to a particular display and I purchased this book, which is titled, I Am Jazz. And I think that, this could easily have been on the list with the other Maryland books. So sit back and listen for a moment and let me try and illustrate through this book. Written by Jessica Herthel and Jazz Jennings, pictures by Sheila McNicholas. And it begins this way. I am Jazz. Oh, by the way, I got to show photographs for those who were able to watch on YouTube in addition to just listening. So, like all the kids' books, it's been a while since I've looked at these. But much more to do with the pictures than the particular story. I am Jazz. For as long as I can remember, my favorite color has been pink. My second favorite color is silver. My third favorite color is green. Here are some of my other favorite things: dancing, singing, backflips, drawing, soccer, swimming, makeup, and pretending I'm a pop star. Most of all, I love mermaids. Sometimes I even wear a mermaid tail in the pool. Again, photographs every step of the way for this story. Okay. My best friends are Samantha and Casey. We always have fun together. We like high heels, princess gowns, or cartwheels and trampolines. But I'm not exactly like Samantha and Casey. I have a girl brain, but a boy body. This is called transgender. I was born this way. And again, all photographed. And I should stop there and just say, would you want your son, daughter, niece, nephew, godson, goddaughter, grandson, granddaughter in a public school setting in K through 5 having this as reading material? I have a girl brain, but a boy body. This is called transgender. I was born this way. When I was very little and my mother would say, you're such a good boy, I would say, no, mama, good girl. At first, my family was confused. They'd always thought of me as a boy. As I got a little older, I hardly ever played with trucks or tools or superheroes, only princesses and mermaid costumes. My brothers told me that was girl stuff. I kept right on playing. My sister says I was always talking to her about my girl thoughts and my girl dreams and how one day I would be a beautiful lady. She would giggle and say, you're a funny kid. Sometimes my parents let me wear my sister's dresses around the house, but whenever we went out, I had to put on my boy clothes again. This made me mad. Still, I never gave up trying to convince them. Pretending I was a boy felt like a lie. Then one amazing day, everything changed. Mom and Dad took me to meet a new doctor who asked me lots and lots of questions. And afterward, the doctor spoke to my parents and I heard the word transgender for the very first time. That night at bedtime, my parents both hugged me and said, we understand now. Be who you are. We love you no matter what. This made me smile and smile and smile. Mom and Dad told me I could start wearing girl clothes to school and growing my hair long. They even let me change my name to Jazz. Being Jazz felt much more like being me. Mom said that being Jazz would make me different from other kids at school, but that different is okay. What's important, she said, is that I'm happy with who I am. Being Jazz caused some other people to be confused too, like the teachers at school. At the beginning of the year, they wanted me to use the boys' bathroom and play on the boys' team in gym class, but that didn't feel normal to me at all. Almost finished. I was so happy when the teachers changed their minds. I can't imagine not playing on the same team as Casey and Samantha. Even today, there are kids who tease me, call me a boy by name, or ignore me altogether. This makes me feel crummy. Then I remember that the kids who get to know me usually want to be my friend. They say I'm one of the nicest girls at school. I don't mind being different. Different is special. I think what matters most is what a person is like inside. And inside, I am happy. I am having fun. I am proud. I am Jazz. So again, not one of the five books specifically at issue in the Supreme Court yesterday, but easily could have been. And I was, thrilled to actually be able to buy the book at my local indie kids bookstore just to try and understand this issue a little bit better. And as I say, Sarah Brannon, who wrote Uncle Bobby's Wedding, is going to be on the radio program today. In that story, a young girl realizes that two uncles are better than one. Uncle Bobby's Wedding was published as her first book, and she decided that she would write about a girl named Chloe, worried that her favorite uncle won't have time for her after he and his boyfriend, Jamie, get married. And the happy ending is she realizes now that she's, getting two for one. So, okay, what happened yesterday in the Supreme Court on this? And I always like to go to SCOTUS blog and see how Amy Howe recaps the court. She said this, and this is borne out. I've read the other coverage in the Washington Post and the New York Times. Everybody observing seems to think that the Supreme Court yesterday, in answer to my poll question today, is going to stand on the side of parents who say they want to be able to opt out. Amy Howe, quote, "The Supreme Court on Tuesday was sympathetic to a group of Maryland parents who want to be able to opt their elementary-aged children out of instruction that includes LGBTQ plus themes. The parents argued that the local school board's refusal to give them that choice violates their religious beliefs and therefore their constitutional right to freely exercise their religion. 2.5-hour argument. A majority of the justices seemed to agree with them, and several justices questioned whether there would even be any harm to simply allowing parents to excuse their children from the instruction." By the way, important to note, it's not really an issue of should this book be in a public elementary school or a book like this, but rather should a parent. They're not arguing like stop that book from even being accessible. They're saying, should a parent have an opportunity, if explained in advance, notified in advance, to opt out of that level of instruction? The parents in the case have children in the public schools in Montgomery County. That's in a DC suburb, one of the most religiously diverse counties in the United States. They include the plaintiffs, the litigants, the parents, a Muslim, Roman Catholics, Ukrainian Orthodox, and another Roman Catholic. They are the litigants in this. In 2022, the county school board approved books featuring LGBTQ characters for use in its language arts curriculum. So that's the part of the curriculum. One book describes the story of a girl attending her uncle's same-sex wedding. That's the author on today's radio program. Another book, Pride Puppy, tells the story of a puppy that gets lost at a pride parade. The following year, the board announced that it would no longer allow parents to excuse their children from instruction on the days that these storybooks were used, and that's how it gets into federal court. So at the Supreme Court yesterday, what was some of what was said? All right, I'll give you just some examples. Justice Amy Coney Barrett suggested that the teaching of the content in the storybooks might amount to more than mere exposure. Presentation of an idea as fact, such as telling students that this is the right view of the world, she posited, is different from exposure, such as telling students that, quote, some people think a particular thing. In other words, if you're using a book like I Am Jazz, you instruct the kids are going to think, okay, this is it, and there's not an alternative perspective on this issue, including a religious perspective of their own parents. Justice Neil Gorsuch, here's another one, echoed the idea, indicating that for a teacher to tell students that some people think X and X is wrong and X is hurtful and negative would be more than exposure on your theory. The justices also focused on a related idea of whether being exposed to the storybooks actually coerces the parents to violate their religion. In this instance, Justice Sonia Sotomayor maintained it does not. Sotomayor said, haven't we made very clear that the mere exposure to things that you object to is not coercion? And then weighing in was the Chief Justice, John Roberts. He appeared more skeptical. He noted that even if the county policy does not require students to affirm what is being taught in books or lessons, like it's not because you're going to be quizzed on this and you've got to agree to it, he said that may not be a realistic concept for a 5-year-old. Telling such young students that they don't have to agree with the teacher may be even more of a dangerous message. Right. Imagine how you'd present this. Like, we're going to read from this book, but just because it's coming from the teacher, that doesn't mean that it's something you have to rely on, believe in, or believe to be accurate. Like now, all of a sudden, you turn over to multiplication or to a science lecture, and they've just been told, well, you don't have to rely on the teacher. You can see how fraught this is, right? The court's Democratic appointees expressed concern that the parents' proposed rule would have a wide sweep, giving them broad discretion to opt out. That was Justice Kagan. Sotomayor echoed Kagan's concerns about the potentially broad scope of the parents' position, noting that there have been objections to biographical material about women who've been recognized for achievement outside the home, as well as books featuring divorce, interfaith marriage, immodest dress, where, she queried, will the parents draw the line beyond requiring the school to inform them of the curriculum and then allow them to opt out? I'll give you one more perspective. Justice Kavanaugh. As Justice Brett Kavanaugh asked, the parents are not seeking to stop instruction in the classroom, but only not to be forced to participate in it. That was the point that I made earlier. And if the parents are simply seeking to have their children excused from instruction, Justice Alito asked, what's the big deal about allowing them to opt out for this? That's probably the way that it's going to go with the 6-3 majority, 6-3 conservative majority of the court. Yeah, I think that's a good recap. So, okay, how do you see this one? Should parents have the right to exempt their children from school materials that include LGBTQ plus themes? You can make the argument that yes, because of parental rights, or primarily, I think the argument rests on a First Amendment expression of religious belief for those families, those households, those parents who say, our church teachings are different. Consequently, on that day, we'd like our kids to stay home. You could also, I guess, make the age, not I guess, you certainly could make the age appropriateness argument. My own personal view, if I put myself back into a parental mode and I think in terms of K through 5, I want ours, and I think we did raise them this way, to be open and accepting and loving and welcoming of everybody, and certainly not discriminatory. Would I want this though? You know, if I go back to the Montessori days of our kids, would I want this book being taught in those ages or read in those ages? I don't think that I would. And not because of a religious belief, but because of an age appropriateness belief. If you said to me that there was a young boy or a young girl at an early age having issues of gender dysphoria, and that the kids in the class were making life difficult, I might feel differently. And I might say, well, we need to have an intervention of sorts. Against allowing the exemption, inclusive education. You know, the argument that exposure to diverse perspectives, including these themes, is essential for fostering an understanding, even at an early age. Educational consistency could be another argument. Allowing exemptions could then lead to a fragmented educational experience, you know, the slippery slope. If you're letting them out for this, what else are you going to let them out for? And I guess there's prepare them now for the real world, because they're going to have to deal with these issues, and better that we educate them when they're youngest. I'm spitballing here, but that's the best that I can come up with. What I can tell you for sure is it's a great poll question, and I think brought to life by the book that I just shared with you. So go vote at Smerconish.com. Should parents have the right? I don't know how this one will turn out today. I've not yet voted. My own vote is going to be a yes vote. I think I've made that clear. Should parents have the right to exempt their children from school materials that include LGBTQ plus themes? I probably should have made clear in the poll question, slight mistake on my part, the age that we're talking about. We're talking about elementary school. We're talking about elementary school. But I don't know. We do, as you know, tend to get progressive poll results more often than not, a subject of conversation on the program itself. But I don't know how this one will go. I don't know how this one is going to turn out. So let's all be surprised by going to smerconish.com and casting our ballot, and then the results will flash on your screen. Okay? It's a good one. It's a really interesting one, and I'll be talking about it extensively on radio today. Okay, thank you, gang. Like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe, and set yourself up for notifications. Go vote at smerconish.com. By the way, thank you. We just passed the 60,000 subscriber milestone. It's been a slow but steady upward trajectory, and I'm very appreciative for all those who find me on YouTube. Thanks. See ya.
Very cool. Evidently, there was some crackling at the beginning, but then it got better. Did you do what you usually do with